Good morning, everyone. Buenos días a todos. Bienvenidos. Welcome. My name is Juan Flores. I will be the moderator today for this morning's webinar. Let me give you a few housekeeping items before we begin the webinar. We're providing closed captions in Spanish translation. If you would like to access the closed captions feature, you will find it by clicking the CC/closed caption icon on your Zoom panel. Captions will show at the bottom of the screen. If you would like to access the Spanish translation, you can find it by clicking the interpretation icon on your Zoom panel. For help with either of these functions, please reach out in the chat to our Zoom tech, and Riti will assist you. Today, Riti is our Zoom tech. Buenos días a todos, bienvenidos nuevamente. Yo soy Juan, voy a ser el moderador de esta junta. Si necesita servicios de traducción en español, durante esta presentación, puede hacer clic en la figura de globo en la parte baja derecha de su pantalla. Earlier this year, the Center on Race, Poverty, and the Environment, Bakersfield College, Kern Community College District, and the UC Merced Community and Labor Center received a grant to complete what is called the Kern Strategic Workforce Plan. This comes with the responsibility for us to lead a process to create a plan to help bring high-quality jobs to Kern County, along with bringing more equitable economic opportunities in the face of changing employment trends in Kern County due to California climate policies. We are very excited to see community members, some youth activists, some important stakeholders of our county today. So we're very, very excited that you're making the time to spend your Saturday morning with us. So for that, we're very grateful and thankful that you're joining us. We would like to encourage to see more community members, so you can help us pass the word for the future webinars. We would also like to encourage you to invite your friends, your co-workers, your classmates, your friends and neighbors, your family members. Please invite them over. Let them know that we're having these very important conversations for the future of Kern. We're also going to encourage you during the presentation to share your ideas and thoughts on the Jamboards, and we're going to be providing links as we approach those opportunities for you to provide feedback. We want you to dream big, because this is our county, this is our home, this is where we're going to plan to spend the rest of our lives. So we want a better and brighter future for our communities. So dream big. Let us know what you would like to see on the community, and please do not stop from sharing or refraining from sharing your ideas and thoughts. I would like to introduce to you now our presenters for today's webinar. They are from Bakersfield College, Norma Rojas Mora, from UC Merced Community and Labor Center, Ed Flores, and from CRP, Ingrid Bostrom. One last thing before we jump into the presentation. You can put your questions on the Q&A icon on the bottom of your screen. Please send us as many questions as you have. If something is not clear, let us know, and we would like to answer. We would likely answer all of them at the end of the webinar. There's also going to be an opportunity for you to fill 2 surveys. One of them is going to be a feedback survey about this webinar, and we would like to hear from you. What else can we do to improve or make these webinars better? So please take a few minutes, either during the presentation or at the end of the presentation, to give us that feedback. Then you're also going to have an opportunity to do a little bit extended more surveys assessment that we would really like to hear from you. Well, with any further ado, I would like to introduce to you Ingrid Bostrom from CRP.
Thanks, Juan. And thanks everyone for showing up today on your Saturday. We're really excited to share with you a little bit about this project. And I'm going to just open it up with talking about the big picture of why we're here today. And it is our hope that after this workshop, folks will have a better understanding of what a, quote, high road future might look like, why it's so important that we plan for a high road future, especially here in Kern County, and what is the process for planning for a high road future for Kern. And as the slide mentions, the key to this project is building partnerships with Kern stakeholders, really including those that are typically left out of economic development conversations, such as workers and residents. We also want to build a collaborative space to plan for and implement a vision of Kern County, which prioritizes good quality jobs, which are accessible to all, while also advancing the state's climate policies and improving our local environment. So in a nutshell, this project is about 1, building partnerships, 2, planning for and creating good jobs, 3, advancing climate policies, and 4, improving our local environment. Next slide, please. So here's a quick agenda. We want to go over the who, what, why, and how, not necessarily in that order. So we'll first be talking about the current Kern landscape, as well as our changing future. Then we'll talk about defining High Road and what our project's goals are. We'll talk a little bit about building our partnerships and collaboration process. And then finally, we'll talk about the process and the next steps. Next slide. So to start, we're going to give a picture of where we are now in Kern County to start framing why this project is so important for Kern and why the state is investing in this region for this project. So the next few slides will talk a little bit about the current landscape of Kern. None of this should be a surprise to folks, but it's good to recognize where we are now to help plan where we want to go and what we need to do to get there. So we'll be talking about both our environment as well as the current and future state of our employment in Kern. Next slide. So I'm going to start talking a little bit about our environment here in Kern. Kern County consistently ranks among the most polluted regions in the country due to industrial development and its natural landscape. Residents experience heat, wildfire, drought, extremely poor air quality, widespread groundwater contamination, as well as a high number of contaminated sites, as well as other environmental challenges. So Kern County really does top all the wrong lists. It has the worst annual particle pollution in the country. And these are extremely small dust particles that can lodge in the respiratory system, and they're very dangerous for people's health. And it's one of the reasons why Kern County is also ranked #1 for the highest rate of chronic lower respiratory deaths in California. The American Lung Association consistently ranks the Bakersfield metropolitan area among the top polluted regions, again, in the whole country. In addition to the extremely poor air quality here, the region also experiences significant water quality challenges, especially around arsenic, nitrates, and 1,2,3 TCP. As we all know, the entire region is experiencing severe or extremely severe drought conditions right now. And we also have dozens of contaminated sites or brownfields that are awaiting cleanup and pose a current risk to residents. So with all of this bad news, it's easy to just throw our hands up in despair. But instead, we need to work collectively to increase investment in cleaning our neighborhoods and our environment at the same time as we create quality jobs. So the environmental landscape in Kern County presents opportunities to invest in our future by putting folks to work in ways that improve the local environment and the lives of people who live here. Next slide, please. So the other backdrop is our state's climate policies. So I wanted to give a brief overview of what we can expect in the coming years as our state's climate policies are advanced and what that actually means for Kern County. So a couple of things are happening. One, we have a statewide requirement to reduce our greenhouse gas levels by 40% by the year 2030. We've also heard recent announcements that all new cars and passenger trucks in California must be zero emission vehicles by 2035. Even more recently, we heard the governor announce plans to phase out fossil fuel production in California by 2045. And finally, in Kern County, we already know that the fossil fuel production here is naturally declining due to the age and quality of its oil fields. Not only are these things in play, but we're seeing the need for more aggressive policies as the climate crisis worsens. So these are just what we have in place today, but we also know that there'll be many more climate policies that'll have a very large impact on Kern County as a region. And Kern County will be especially impacted because the county produces the largest share of fossil fuels in California by far. And I also wanted to note that the agricultural sector will also be greatly impacted by a changing climate. So this is a little bit about why we need to plan now for how to direct and invest in our economy, our workforce, and our environment. And with that, I'm going to pass it over to Ed. Thank you.
Thank you, Ingrid. So Ingrid shared a little bit about environmental characteristics of Kern County, and I'm going to speak a little bit about characteristics of employment in Kern County. Kern County faces some of the greatest economic disadvantages in the nation. More than one in 3 worker households earn so little that they live below a living wage, experiencing chronic and severe housing and food insecurity. This rate is 4th highest in California, but 2nd highest in the nation for any county with more than 800,000 residents. Can we have next slide, please? Okay, so here's a question. Which industries employ the largest workforces in Kern County? Take a moment to think and to enter your response in the Jamboard. You can find the Jamboard located on, I think we placed it in the chat. So if you click there, then you should be able to enter your responses. Okay, so folks have entered responses like public infrastructure, solar, clean energy. These are definitely industries that have a significant presence or are growing in Kern County. Can we go to the next slide, please? U.S. Census Bureau, from the most recent American Community Survey, the largest source of data on workers in America, suggests that in 2019, there were 371,000 workers in Kern County. The county's 8 largest industries employ most of the workers in Kern County. These 8 largest industries employ 60% of Kern workers. And so this includes industries such as agriculture, restaurants, food services, construction, and health. Next slide, please. At the same time, there is great change in the labor market over time. The previous figure was a snapshot of the Kern County labor market in 2019. But as you can see in figure 2, jobs in the oil and gas industry increased by 40% between the end of the Great Recession in 2009 and 3 years later in 2012. But by 2019, there were 20% fewer jobs than there had been in 2009. So a great amount of volatility in the oil and gas labor market. Can we go to the next slide, please? In 2020, the state of California commissioned a 600-page report that creates a blueprint for advancing the state's ambitious climate action plan to reduce greenhouse gas emissions by 2035. The report, Putting California on a Higher Road, found that low-road economic strategies were the single greatest challenge to reducing greenhouse gas emissions. For example, truck drivers misclassified as independent contractors don't have the means to invest in more fuel-efficient technology. The report advances a framework of high-road training partnerships to move us toward climate goals. The report states, California climate policy can and should generate safe, family-supporting career track jobs, broaden job opportunities for workers from disadvantaged communities, and contain supports for workers and communities in carbon-intensive industries at risk of decline due to climate policy. Next slide, please. Okay, so here's another question. Which industries would you like to see grow in Kern County? We have a Jamboard on in the chat in case you'd like to enter your responses. these are some of the responses that that folks had shared previously yesterday, and as you can tell, Kern has a diverse economy, jobs in education, public services, aerospace, tech, social services, warehousing and logistics, healthcare, manufacturing, remediation of brownfields and oil wells. Next slide, please. One example of a high road training partnership, actually, some examples of high road training partnerships from across the state include electrified public transportation, solar infrastructure projects, building efficiency and retrofitting, water infrastructure, and several other jobs in manufacturing, janitorial, and skilled nursing for climate disasters and other emergencies. Next slide, please. And I'll leave you with one example of high road training partnership. This case study is drawn from the California Workforce Development Board's site, and it presents to us building skills partnerships, Green Jobs, Good Jobs program as an example of an HRTP. The BSP builds systems and partnerships with industry and worker leaders, including building owners, employers, janitorial and industry leaders, and SEIU USWW, a labor union that represents janitorial workers. The program strengthens employers' ability to comply with sustainable practices and is marketed to owners of commercial buildings interested in adopting green training certification programs and other building sustainability standards. Green Jobs, Good Jobs offers vocational training in English language and green skills, often blended with financial and digital literacy, citizenship, higher education, and other workforce development and immigrant integration needs. It provides low-income janitors with access to professional development opportunities to advance their careers. It defines and improves skills, standards, training, professionalization, and career ladder opportunities for a largely immigrant, non-English speaking population. And here to talk a little bit more about the HRTP principles is Norma.
Thank you, Ed. So the guiding principles for the High Road Training Partnership is a process that is inclusive. And so we're wanting to ensure that everyone has a voice and everyone has an opportunity to share their vision for Kern County. It is also a worker-centered approach. So when you see us out engaging with community, it will be focused on workers and community and getting their feedback on what the vision for Kern County looks like. And finally, it is based upon shared goals. And those goals include ensuring that the jobs of the future are having a positive impact on our local environment and addressing the climate goals of the future. Next slide, please. A high road training partnership works by bringing three things together. It is looking at climate and building an economic and environmental resilience within the community. Equity, which is advancing economic opportunities for all, and jobs, ensuring that we're delivering skills for quality jobs. Next slide, please. So what does a high road Kern County look like? A high road Kern County would include high quality jobs. It would ensure that workers are prepared to fill growing industry demand for skilled workers. It would ensure that workers are prepared with the skills needed to adapt to and master new zero and low emission technologies. It would also offer more career opportunities for workers from disadvantaged communities and backgrounds. And it would also ensure that workers whose jobs may be at risk are supported through economic transitions. So I have another Jamboard question for you, which is, what does a high road Kern look like to you? And if you could please type your response in the chat. Oh, there's the link to the Jamboard, I'm sorry. And if you click on the Jamboard little post-it, then you can post your response. So again, what does a high road Kern look like? So some of the responses are less poverty, union jobs, and a living wage. Jobs that improve our local infrastructure. Closing the gap between rich and the poor. Healthcare for workers. Great. I see more responses coming in, so thank you so much for your participation. Industries that take care of the environment. Community gardens. Keeping our youth in Kern, no brain drain. Comunidades saludables. Great. Less poverty, more participatory policy making. Okay. Great. So thank you for that feedback. We agree all of those things are potentially what a high road Kern could look like. Next slide, please. So that really is the reason that this partnership came together. And the High Roads Training Partnership is about partnership and collaboration. So the core conveners are the Kern Community College District, Bakersfield College, the Center on Race, Poverty, and the Environment, and the University of California Merced's Community and Labor Center. Additional partners include the Kern Inyo Mono, Central Labor Council, Community Action Partnership of Kern, Cal State University Bakersfield, the SEIU 521, and the Building Trades Council. Next slide, please. I'm sorry, go back to the last slide. I want to make sure that I emphasize these are not the sole partners. There are opportunities for other partners to join this collaboration. And so you can do so by visiting our website. And again, we will have more of these convenings where you will be able to engage. Next slide, please. So how do we get to a high road Kern? Our process is going to involve a 4-phase process, which is the design phase, the problem phase, a vision phase, and a solution phase. Step 1 is to start with information gathering, which is part of today's webinar. You'll have a chance to participate in a needs assessment survey, as well as we will be conducting high road employer interviews. This is really about building partnerships and really working with community and workers to identify existing, new, and emerging growth industry sectors. We're going to be developing work groups based on some of these sectors so that we can really understand what opportunities exist, what gaps exist, and how we can really create a stronger workforce for Kern County. As we develop this blueprint, potential projects will emerge and we will have an implementation plan that will be developed for any of the promising sectors that come out of this process. With that, I'm going to turn it over to Juan.
Thank you, Norma. So how can you get involved? Well, there's going to be a couple of links that are going to be put on the chat right now. One of those links is going to be for the needs survey assessment. So if you could help us by taking the time and filling out that survey, we would gladly appreciate. We would like to hear what else are we missing from the workforce of Kern County. You can also volunteer for an interview. If you have time, we would gladly hear from you. Again, we want to make sure that we're covering every single corner of the workforce of Kern County, and that we're hearing from everyone on which way Kern County should move in the future. You can join us for future workshops to provide your input and ideas. We will be following up with some periodical emails to let you know how this is going, and then announcing our next workshops. You can join a sector-based work group to provide your input and ideas. And please pass the word and tell your friends, neighbors, family members, classmates. Please share with everyone this opportunity. We really need to hear from a great majority of Kern County residents. Again, we want to move forward to a brighter future, a bigger and more prosperous future for Kern County. If you have any questions, you can also email us at the email address that appears on the bottom of your screen. Lastly, we are going to put as well another link for feedback about this webinar. We would like to hear from you. How can we improve these webinars? Perhaps you want them to be more interactive. Whichever idea is that you have, please go ahead and take the time to fill that survey. At the end of the webinar, even though I'm gonna say bye to everyone, we're done, we're still gonna remain here to continue answering questions and to give you more time to fill out both surveys. So with that being said, this is the time now for you to ask any questions you may have. You can drop them at the chat or on the Q&A icon. And I'm gonna ask the presenters to come back up on camera to answer some of the questions that our participants may have.
Hi, everyone. I'm Stacy from Bakersfield College. I'm going to be moderating the question and answer session. So if you do have some questions, now would be the time to drop that into the chat or the Q&A function. I don't think I saw any questions posted, but if one of my colleagues could let me know if there was one posted already, that would be great. While we're waiting for questions to come in, Ingrid, could you talk a little bit about the timeline for the project?
Yeah, so this is a 2-year project. This goes out to March 2023. But of course, this blueprint or strategic plan is not the end of the process. We really don't want to see this plan developed and then sit on the shelf, but really is meant to guide our future work, bring more investment into the region, and to actually implement the vision that we developed through this process. And so the initial process is a 2-year process, but of course, moving forward, we anticipate this to be a long-term project, and that we can actually implement the vision that we collectively developed.
Thanks. And Norma, can you talk a little bit about who are the stakeholders in this process, and what do we mean when we talk about stakeholders?
Well, stakeholders are the people who live in Kern County. It's the people who are affected by the economic drivers here in the region and the environmental drivers here in the region. So stakeholders will require engagement from everyone, whether you are currently a worker, if you're a student, youth, we want to hear from everyone. And so that involvement is going to require really casting a wide net throughout Kern County. And it's going to require us reaching out to folks like you to get the word out to everyone about this process and the project.
Great, thank you. And then Ed, I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about the approach that's being taken with this. It's different than a lot of workforce development projects that have come about in the past, and that it's really, focused on engaging workers. So if you could talk about that for a minute, that would be great.
Sure. So workforce development has traditionally relied heavily on the input from employers, business owners, and the voices that have been left out of workforce development typically have been those from communities that are have really faced the forefront of economic change. And so what's unique about the High Road approach is that it brings stakeholders from communities that represent workers to the table, worker organizations, community-based organizations, unions. And so we're going to be working in a broad-based collaborative to develop some key recommendations and identify some key policy mechanisms in order to create a High Road Kern.
Thanks, Ed. It doesn't look like we have any questions coming in. So with the time that we have left, perhaps we can go back to the first two Jamboards and go over a little bit what was said there. Ed, can you take us through those?
Sure. So I'm going to place in the chat the question: what does a High Road Kern look like to you? And so you can click on the link and see responses that others have entered, and enter your own responses. I just see that someone right now. Should I do a screen share or? Okay, there we go. Okay, so this is I'll go ahead and place that question in the chat. So which industries would you like to see grow in Kern County? And so if you click on the Jamboard, you can enter a response. And these were the industries that you all have mentioned you would like to see grow in Kern County, which is agriculture, education, medical, healthcare, oil and gas. Sorry, I'm a little confused here.
Yeah, and I think this was the first Jamboard, which had people talk about who they believe are the largest employers.
Okay.
Not the ones that we would like to see grow.
Okay, so so folks, I rightly identify agriculture as being one of the largest employers in the region, as well as education, and as we mentioned, those are among the 8 largest industries in the county. There's also the questions that were very aspirational that we wanted to ask to you. What industries would you like to see grow in Kern County? And we can see that folks right now just entered a couple minutes ago. Clean energy sources, especially in independent trucking, medical, right? There's a lack of healthcare in Kern County and the rest of the Central Valley, and so having greater access to healthcare is important. So medical needs greater development and research and technology. Other folks also mentioned research, public services, the tech industry, and then down below on the left side, we see that someone mentioned infrastructure, right? So these are ways that folks would like to see the economy develop in Kern County beyond the strong basis that it already has. And so in convening folks in order to develop ideas of what a High Road Kern could look like, it's going to be really valuable to have this input in where folks would like to see the growth in economics, in job opportunities.
Thank you, Ed. And now I think we will hand it over to Juan to wrap things up.
Well, one more time, we would like to thank you all for participating today with us. Again, it's a Saturday morning, so we really value your time. Please, you have an email address where you can email us if there's any more thoughts, any more feedback, and you don't have time right now to fill the survey, although we really encourage you to take the time and fill that survey today, you can always email us. That would be the best way to communicate with us. Please stay tuned for, again, some periodical emails that we're going to send to you with more information. Ingrid, I saw that you're on mute. Do you have anything to share?
Yes, a question came in. So before we end,
Awesome.
to make sure that we answer the question. I don't know, Stacy wanted to take it. So the question that came in is, when is the next opportunity to check in and learn? I mean,
I think, oh, I was gonna say, again, I
Um,
think Juan did a good job of saying, yeah, keep an eye out for emails and information. We now have your information, and so you'll definitely be receiving information on other opportunities to engage and participate.
Yeah, and I just wanted to share, that we've done these 3 webinars and invited folks, but if there are particular groups that you think would really benefit from this information, we are also happy to share with community groups, labor groups, on a more of an individual basis, because our hope really is to get the word out and have as many people as possible participate and understand what we're trying to do. So again, if you use that email, or you can reach out to any of us that you might already know, if you would like to have more conversations about this with any other particular group that might have missed these webinars.
Right, and the first 2 that we held, just because we tried creating different time slots for these webinars so that we can accommodate folks with different working schedules. This was a pretty small one, but we had a couple other ones during the week that were significantly larger. And if there's any interest in, how we come together to have these conversations, that's going to be an ongoing conversation. And we see in the chat that Nayamin has her hand raised.
I think Nayamin wrote a question, and her question is, the goal is to complete a plan with recommendations on how to generate cleaner jobs, or also implementation of some pilots.
Yes. So really what we're looking at is, this really is going to be a community authored strategic workforce development plan that will position Kern to implement a cross-sector workforce strategy. And so definitely those sectors that will have a positive impact on Kern's environment and the climate strategies that the state is implementing.
This is a great question, Nayamin. And the length of the project of this project that we're discussing is from now till March of 2023. If we were to implement any sort of project, it would probably be very limited in scope. There isn't anything we could do on a really large level. The idea behind this project is to really think big and to try to, to re-envision what the workforce of Kern County should look like. And based on that, we would have a set of recommendations and, identify key policy mechanisms that need to be changed so that we could then open up those opportunities for pilots and for implementation.
Cool. I don't see any more questions. Let me see. Am I missing anything? No, I'm not. I don't see any more questions. So with that being said, this is the end of our webinar. Again, thank you so much for joining us. We're still gonna stay in the webinar for a few minutes to give you an opportunity to provide us some feedback on the link that Reddy just dropped on the chat for you. And after a few minutes, we're gonna close out. One more time, this is the end. Thank you so much. Stay tuned. You're going to hear more from us, hopefully very soon. Bye, everyone.